A 60-second question?
60-second question.
Okay. Well, the first thing is I would reach out to, I believe there's a bill that's being put forth, and for those of you who don't know, there's 8 runways at O'Hare, 4 of them are diagonal. So those diagonal runways help alleviate some of the traffic, the noise that we're hearing that's coming over. In order to finish the project, they have to open up 2 more runways, and those would be east-west runways. Well, state law says they can only have 8. So they would have to close down 2 of those diagonal runways, which would increase the amount of traffic and not allow to list the opportunity to have them rotate. So the first thing I would do is get together with state representatives and believe that if there's not a bill on the floor, there's one in the works to expand that number to allow there to be 10 runways, so that way then they can still just rotate around to slow down. Also, we want to increase the amount of lower the amount of decibels required to be able to get the soundproofing that's allowed for our homes in 15 seconds.
Thank you, John Arena.
So the O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission has been something that has been in the press, and I know a lot of folks have made calls, and that's been a very instrumental tool in getting attention to this issue. The reality is this is a federal issue that we have to work with folks at a higher level of government to make sure we get attention. And Congressman Quigley, Congresswoman Duckworth, and Schakowsky have all been very vocal on this. I've been advocating along with them to work with the FAA to implement the Fly Quiet program. The Fly Quiet program kind of dictates how pilots approach O'Hare when they drop their landing gear, when they put their flaps out. These are things that affect the noise profile of an airplane coming overhead. The distribution across the airfield is something that obviously Congressman Quigley has called for an environmental impact study, which is underway, so that we can get a read on how this is going to affect quality of life.
Thank you, Sean Barron.
As has been noted, it is actually a federal issue, but there is a great organization that here locally, grassroots, that have been beating the drums, FAIR, which is Fair Allocation in Runways. And they have been fighting to make sure the voices are heard here locally. And I would work with them, actually I've just recently signed on with them and support them in their endeavors. What they have been doing is fighting to make sure that you're being heard, encouraging you to still make the phone calls for the fighting for Fly Quiet. One of the triumphs I believe they just had is that I believe American Airlines is actually going to retire one of their fleets of aircrafts, the DC-80s, I believe it is, 10 years early, because of the workhorses that make the most noise. And so working with those kind of organizations to make sure our voices here locally are still heard, and then also with the congressmen who have more power to be able to make a difference.
And Michael Diaz.
Well, this is a tricky issue because as I walk around the ward, one of the things I find is a lot of people don't really notice it until the weekends or at night when they're home. So it's important, but then some people are like, well, it is what it is. Now I moved into the ward; it's been noisy since I've been here. I used to live at Midway Airport, so I'm quite used to it. I'm not the best spokesperson for this, but what I can say is that dealing with the FAA is tricky, right? But the way I think of it is pretty simple. We have a chief of staff that used to be chief of staff to the president of the United States, and the president is the individual who I think chooses the commissioner, secretary, whatever it is, over at the FAA. We need to have that conversation with the mayor and see what the mayor can do, if at all possible, in addition to our congressional delegation. But I don't want to sit up here and promise you great things, because the fact of the matter is, this thing is left to barn. It's going to be pretty difficult to stop.
Thank you.